Let's watch Senator Thom Tillis read Russell vote for filth. This was so satisfying to watch, and I feel like you should watch it with me one more time. Let me relive it for you. Relive it for you with me, and I will give you my specific thoughts and opinion on this on the other side. So let's get started.
Mr. Vought, thank you for being here. Tell me the one Doge initiative that you think is the best example of the work that was done before Doge was quiesced in CFPB, or you can go anywhere else. But just give me the best example of what you thought was an exquisite realization of value that came through cuts that worked their way through the Doge office.
Well, I do believe that the reductions in force as a tool.
Which specific one?
In general.
Yeah, but I want to get into specifics. You and I have different backgrounds. Mine was in enterprise implementation. I did this for a living, and so I don't want a word salad answer.
Well, it's not word salad, Senator. CFPB. I'm trying to do a reduction in force.
But I'm just asking you across the board. Give me one best, because here's what I'm asking for. The Doge office has been quiesced. Okay. But there were a lot of claims of billions and billions of dollars in savings. I simply want to know where you booked them and where I can see it.
I didn't run Doge, Senator.
You are OMB, right?
I am, but I am not Doge.
You do track to me, and when I worked in business and we had to implement efficiency, we got engaged to come in, do activity-based accounting, whatever was necessary to identify the efficiencies. Then we go to the CEOs and say, part of this is going to be a reduction in force. We're going to do this in a methodical manner. The number one thing we want to do is absolutely have a reduction in force that looks at our best and brightest, that 18 to 25% of the organization, and make damn sure that they don't get a "you're fired" notice. And then we would send out a reduction in force and an efficiencies program that does people, technology, and infrastructure. Give me an example of where that was done over the year that Doge was in place.
Well, I think the extent to which we
because
shut down
let me
USA
back up. The reason I'm targeting you is because I look at you as the guy who books the savings. After we work, let's say we work with whatever department it is, then we got the savings, we come to you and we say, Mr. Vought, this is no longer going to be a part of our expense run rate. You can actually tell the administration that we can decrement that cost because we've cut the savings. Give me the best example of where Doge has done that.
Well, I have been saying in terms of...
No, because give me the best example of where a Doge initiative,
Senator,
once they completed the work, came to you and said, Mr. Vought, you should be aware that our baseline run rate for expenses have gone down. Give me one example.
We have an appropriations process, Senator.
I'm sorry?
There's an appropriations process. We have put forward a budget that's $160 billion in Doge savings.
I've heard a lot of people, including you, talk about the Doge savings. I've worked in the business world. My understanding is the last time you worked in the business world was at B. Dalton Books when you were putting yourself through law school. Good on you. But you don't have this experience, and a lot of people that were involved in this do not have this experience. I love the idea of Doge. But what I don't love is the idea of Doge shit that we're picking up because people did it wrong. I spell it with a dollar sign, by the way, Mr. Chair. But at the end of the day, we've got to be honest with the American people. We had people running through here and talking about all the savings. At the end of the day, book it. Every single one of these things should have before, after, net savings, and run rate for cost. And Mr. Vought, if you would submit for the record, I may have caught you flat-footed on this one, and I apologize for that.
You don't have to apologize.
But
it's $160 billion in savings
Mr. Vought,
that we
look,
identified.
this is going to be real simple. You don't have to do anything except present to me.
I did, the budget.
A consultation for the record in written form, a consultation with the government agency that had the most documented and sustainable savings so that I can go back to North Carolina and explain where Doge was successful. Because right now, I'm picking up a lot of bags of people who are some of the most experienced people leaving, scientists leaving NIH, these random, you were fired, oh, I'm sorry, you weren't, wrong email address. All that stuff is amateurish stuff that would have gotten me fired in my job at Price Waterhouse in a week. I want to see, but I'm willing to be open to it. You got a best case. I love being proved wrong when I'm coming out and saying something that I'm very disappointed with. I would love nothing more than a briefing before this committee on the extraordinary work of identify the target, achieve the target, book the savings, and inform the appropriations process.
Here's 4 reasons why that takedown was brilliant. 1, it was coming from a Republican, someone from Donald Trump's party. Something that you don't often see because the people in the Senate and the House are fearful of being primaried because they've seen when Donald Trump supports an opponent who doesn't go along with his agenda, they win because the MAGA are like they're active. They're I think it's like cult-like. They will go and do what Donald Trump tells them, where a lot of Republicans who are not part of MAGA will just sit out. So that's why even though he's able to primary him, it's because his MAGA are really enthused, whereas the general Republican base are not as enthused. And so they're not supporting the establishment representatives that are in the House and Congress and the Senate right now. They will just sit out because they're disappointed and they're like disenchanted and disengaged. Not actively want to go out and support the Republican Party that they see is contributing to and enabling and emboldening the destruction of their country. So that is why MAGA, Donald Trump's able to primary them. And because of that fear of being primaried, the ones in Senate now, they know very well that what's going on is out of order, is bizarre, because they're 60, 70, whatever years old. Some of them are 80 years old. So they know it's normal. They know all of this is abnormal. They're just prefer to stay in power and stay their job. They know if they speak up, they will lose their jobs. That's it. So the ones that are on their way out, like Thomas Massey, who is retiring, who I think he got primary. Thom Tillis, who is retiring, and John Cornyn, who got primaried, they can actually be bold and be brave and do what the other coward Republicans refuse to do and speak out against this nonsense and use their So that's one thing why it's good. The second reason why it's good is that he was asking for specific numbers. The whole Doge thing was a scam. They were going around saying all these savings, amorphously saying it just in generalities. And even the people defended. When you asked them to push back on specific numbers, they couldn't defend it. And we saw instances where there were accounting errors that anyone who has an accounting background would say, oh, that's due to the Gregorian calendar, blah, 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 blah. The Doge people, because they're not accounting people, will see those numbers and be like, oh, and rush to go report them. Meanwhile, the people with actual accounting backgrounds, when they see the stuff that Doge is presenting as savings, they're looking at each other like, this is not accurate. This is based on the fact that Elon Musk equipped his team full of people who have no accounting background. The reason why Doge is a scam is because what they did was took a hammer approach to the government when it should have been a scalpel approach. And because it's a hammer, because afterwards, during Doge existence, after it sunsetted, you see a lot of the agencies realizing the cutting was too much, it was too blunt, it was not done carefully, and they had to call people back. That's something that Senator Thom Tillis mentioned in his remarks. And the reason why I had to call people back is because of the fact that they were not careful. It was just a mishmash. And I did a video you should watch. I'm going to put in the end screen where I called out Elon Musk, who was being investigated about 12 or so American executive agencies at the time he took over Doge. And one of the first things he did was neutralize that threat of firing the people in those agencies, shutting some of them down, and doing it walkfully with disregard to the fact that it's going to impact American people and the civilians and the consumers and the folks that actually rely on their government to help and support them. And, that's what you have a government for. That's why you have representatives to look for your interests. But because Elon was only interested in himself, he did these cuts, and now he's out of the door, and the people are left to clean the mess. I love the props that Tillis had when he had the organic bag. It was like a poop bag. It was like the bag people carry when they walk their dogs, and they have like a pooper scooper and put the dog poop and carry it with them. He had that to say, I'm picking up your shit. It seems he's like, Doge is gone, and now I'm left with all of these experienced, seasoned, career federal workers that hold up our country, that hold up our government, that allows things to be seamless, to allow us to be one of the best nations in the world, leave, brain drain, get pushed out for ideological reasons. And that's frustrating. And because he's a numbers guy, he says, I worked for Price Cooper Waterhouse for years. So this is how we do accounting. This is how we actualize and we justify cuts. It's specific, it's methodical. So give me that. He didn't have an answer. I thought it was so Sarah Palin-esque when Thom Tillis said, give me a specific example, which specific program is an example of the savings. And he says, well, generally all of them. Like it was Sarah Palin was being interviewed by Katie Couric, and Katie Couric asked Sarah Palin, what newspapers or magazines do you read to keep you abreast of current events? And she said, any of them, all of them, which showed clearly she's not reading anything. So that was like a Sarah Palin moment. But he couldn't answer. You saw him continuously pivot back to the overall savings. We saved such. We made a savings. That's just a statement. So he's like, I understand you say that, but let me see it itemized. Let me see the functionality. And the reason why they saved those much is because it was indiscriminate cuts. It was not savings. And so Thom Tillis at one point said that when you... Well, actually, this is part of another video. Someone else called him out on this and said, what you say is a savings isn't truly a savings because economics-wise, you say it's a savings now, but the way you harm people and the way you harm consumers, it's net-wise is going to pan out to not be a savings after all. So that was good. And I also love the burn when he says, this is what I do. I'm experiencing this. I understand the last time you worked in business was when you were working at B. Dalton Books trying to put yourself through law school. I was like, burn. So he's like, give me some numbers. My time is up, but I need the numbers. And he's not going to have any numbers because they didn't do this. They didn't think of it. Like he's a zealot. He's ideological, like ideologue, so they have these grand ideas of what they want to promote, but they don't understand the granular levels of impact of what they're going to do and how it impacts people, impact lives, impact children, impact the elderly, impact the disabled, impact like communities, impact people who are poor, impact people who rely on services to get them around, impact people's bottom line, the money. It impacts a lot of people, all the things Russell Vought did. And he was purposeful because he was caught on mic. You've probably seen it. And I've shared it oftentimes on my social media, saying that in between Donald Trump's first term and second term, he was busy writing the executive orders. And one of the members from Project 2025 was also caught on the secret recording saying that they wanted to just give these people their directives so they can act. And that's why you see a lot of Donald Trump's cabinet members from Scott Turner, Lynn McMahon, Lee Zedlin, Howard Lutnick, who else? The one who do programmatic things, Rollins, all of those folks are just going in and just cutting these agencies indiscriminately with no regard to the impact of it because they don't really care. They don't know. They're just robots. They were just given these directives and they're just acting, not in the best interest of the agencies that they're running. They were given a job. And Russell Vought admitted, and Project 2025 people admitted in this secret recording, that's what they were doing. And it's so funny because they're always railing against the deep state and shadow governments, and they admit they were doing a shadow government in between first and second term. And that's another reason why this hearing and all the other hearings, from the Senate confirmation hearing to the oversight hearing for OMB, Office of Budget and Management, to this hearing in particular, was related to his interim role as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That was this round of oversight hearings. And all these hearings, it's proven that he lied. In his confirmation, he said, I am not going to impound funds. I am going to follow the law. He did not follow the law specifically. He's been violating law. Recently, a judge just found that his cutting was a violation of the law. We've had interim decisions go along. This is a final decision by Judge Indira Talwani that Doge, he did, you cannot not fund programs that's already appropriated by Congress where they've already allocated and these grants have already been rewarded. They did what they needed to do to get these grants. You're pulling them back for ideological reasons and you don't have the authority to do that. So that's a decision that just came down against Russell Vought. Like, you're violating the law. And when you said during your confirmation you were not going to violate the law, that was perjury. Why? Because before you had the confirmation hearing, you were caught on hot mic, and also you made a statement, or he was talking to one of his think tank group, which he's head of. And he said, we want to give them trauma. We want to traumatize the federal workers. He said, we want to shut down. We don't want them to have any funding for clean energy. So he said he was intentionally going to shut down programs for ideological reasons before he got there. At the Senate, he said he's not going to do that. And then right afterwards, he actually did it. So he intended, when he said he was going to do it, he knew his intentions were to do it. That's perjury. So of all the different crimes he committed, because he's committed lots of crimes, unlawful actions, we know at least we have a record of him that's perjury in my book. So that was delicious. I loved it. If you want to hear more of this, stay tuned to this channel. I'm going to be doing more breakdowns, and you get my reactions to breakdowns and my thoughts. So stay tuned. Each one teach one is my motto. Share this video so more people know. Stay tuned.